Bridgewater State University. Does Compass take into account that states may vary in terms of how they define race? There's no uniformity in terms of how they might define race. So for example, you might have a Haitian person in Rhode Island who's defined as African American. Or conversely in New York, someone from Cape Verde could be defined as black or Puerto Rican or whatever.
Yep, well, that's all that subtle stuff probably gets washed away. Compass also has another problem, which is that it doesn't depend on the current crime. So even if you come in, the Compass score doesn't even depend on the crime that you just committed. So you could have committed like something very serious or something not serious, and the judge is supposed to calibrate, you know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, I don't know how the judge is going to do that, given that it's a black box. You know, my hypothesis, which I can't prove, is that I don't think it depends on race. So whether it distinguished between these different races, it's not so clear. I mean, other than depending on a through age and criminal history, which happens. But I think the fact that it doesn't depend on the current crime is kind of a major issue for it anyway. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Chateau. My understanding of a lot of the fight back against systems like Compass is that the data going in is inherently biased. And you touched on that briefly. I was wondering if you could just elaborate on that a little more.
Oh yeah, I mean the data. It's yeah, I know. I think ProPublica was complaining more about the data than about the black box, to be honest, because the you know what you're seeing is that police are arresting young black people. So the people who are getting their Compass scores calculated are young black people, and young people are more likely to commit crimes in the future. And so what you're seeing is that the black people are getting higher Compass scores because they're younger. And they also have longer criminal histories. So what you're seeing is higher Compass scores and higher recidivism rates for blacks simply because of the skew toward age and criminal history. So that's what's going on. So this would affect any model that depended on age and criminal history. Even the simple one that I showed you is affected by that. So if you have a policy that that even uses just age and criminal history, or even just age alone, and that policy is going to adversely affect blacks more than it's going to adversely affect whites. Yeah. Sure. Please.
Hi, my name is Marie Cynthia. So I saw that the interpretable model that came out of Corals you said the same accuracy for predicting recidivism as Compass. It was very, very simple. So does that mean that the accuracy of Compass is very low, or that it really comes down to such a it's almost unsatisfying that it's so simple to predict it, right? Should it be more sophisticated?
Should it be more complicated? Yeah, that's exactly the problem that I'm having with these interpretable models. Nobody believes me that you can predict just as well with an interpretable model as you need. They think, oh, you need something complicated, but the truth is, I don't even think Compass is that much more complicated. Yeah, so that is an issue. So no, it's just that for most problems with structured data with meaningful covariates, you can actually predict very well with very simple models. And it's not just criminal justice, it's also a lot of healthcare problems. I've worked in energy. Recently we were working in finance, and we found the same thing for all of these domains. So it's just a property of a data set that, I think it has to do with the number of good models. I think it has to do with the size of the Rashomon set, to be honest. I think that there's large Rashomon sets, there's probably an interpretable model somewhere in the set of good models, and you just have to find it. Yeah.
Geronimo Morano. I was wondering, when you compute the reliance, do you do like the combinatorial knockouts of like every pair of variables and all 3 variables, 4 variables, or is it just like single variable scrambling right now?
Oh, so right now we're scrambling both race and gender. Yeah. So it's just a single scramble. It's actually, the way we're setting it up, it's actually every possible scramble of race and gender. Yeah.
Hi, Cynthia. Here. To take a moment to answer the question the gentleman asked before, the race markers in COMPAS are just 5 very discrete variables. They're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, everything else is other. And there is a significant number of other data points, just to clarify that. As for the question, the scatter plot that you showed about where you were conjecturing that there's a quadratic dependence apparently, how much data are we talking about? The curvature that the slight curvature that we're seeing, how much data is that? And are we also saying that if we had more data, we would be able to see that better, maybe?
Well, it's several thousand people from Broward County, Florida. And obviously, if you had more data, you'd be able to see things more clearly. But there are multiple people on that bottom edge, and they have no criminal history. So I think that if we had more data, it would probably just make the bottom edge even more sharp. But we don't have that data, so I can't tell you what would happen.
You don't have to know this off the top of your head, but do you roughly have a sense of, again, how many data points are we talking about at the bottom edge?
At the bottom edge, there's between 60 and 80 or something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, Stephanie Delka, MIT. So I was wondering, you showed these tables in the end. Did you actually also check for variable importance of the history? So it looks like it's not actually using that history, but I was just wondering whether you checked whether it looks like also in this variable test that it doesn't use it or not.
Oh, those tables were just for with race and without race. So it's just accuracy with race and without race. So there was that was the only variable importance calculation that was there in those tables.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, I
which
was
table?
meaning in the very end you showed these like crazy crime histories that people had in the low score, so it looks like it's not using it. But I was wondering if you actually formally tested that, or if it's something that it's maybe overriding, or something.
Oh yeah, what? Yeah. So I actually think that there's something wrong with the calculation. I think there are typos that are causing that because there's some typo somewhere in the pipeline that led from their criminal history ending up in a database and that calculation of that COMPAS score. I don't know where in the pipeline that happened, but it's pretty clear there was some problem.
Hi, I'm Aida Kawara from Kaleidobite Sciences. Thank you so much for your talk. I wonder what are the other factors that are important in this model. So you mentioned mostly about age and criminal record. I don't know if neighborhood, if I don't know single parent. I just want to see that what are the other important factors that we didn't talk in this talk.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a list of factors in the North Point manual, and some of the factors that so COMPAS does not just they do not just prediction of recidivism. They also do assessment of needs, and so but it's unclear what needs actually means, and it's unclear whether the assessment of needs is actually getting to the people's needs. But there are a whole bunch of questions in there that are really scary. They're like, how often have you had a job above minimum wage? And how often, and was your mother ever arrested? And like all this stuff that really, like, how often your mother was arrested has nothing to do with, well, that shouldn't be, how do I say it? Whether my mother was arrested for something, it shouldn't be used to predict my future crime for these cases. Like that's just, I think, not cool. But unfortunately, since we don't have the survey data, we can't actually determine the variable importance on the survey data.
So just a follow-up question, because your paper and archive came before that. I just wonder that in your model, more than the age and criminal record, what are the factors were there? What kind of data you had?
Yeah, so we only used age and criminal history. Yeah, we didn't use any other, like, there were variables about, like, what we wanted to use were things like drug use and whether you've been in a program that would help you, prevent Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that. But unfortunately, that data was kind of messed up. So that we weren't even able to use that data. Yeah, so it's age and criminal history.
Hi.
And gender, and race. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Sun. I currently work on actually image data and also very interested in interpret the model. Unfortunately, when it comes to image data, I guess the most major and like top model we use is still like those black box like neural network. So I'm wondering, have you thinking or have you done or start like trying to interpret those black box models?
So I don't interpret black box models, I design interpretable models. So we actually have a paper now on interpretable models for computer vision, where it actually creates a neural network, and the network points to aspects of the image and says, I think this looks like that thing I've seen before, and I think this part of the image looks like that thing I've seen before. And then it uses the similarities between the current image and the things it's seen before to make a judgment. So it's supposed to be explaining itself the same way a human explains themselves.
So am I understand right? You at the beginning you use neural network to do the prediction, while you kind of like plug in a more integrated model to try to explain the result.
Well, it's supposed to be an interpretable neural network. So
Okay.
it's actually a neural network that's designed to do this case-based reasoning, so that it allows the humans to see how the network is reasoning about different cases that it's seen in the past.
Oh,
So
that's
not,
very cool.
with images, you can't do decision trees, right? Decision
Yeah.
trees in pixel space is ridiculous. So, so we were trying to design a network that explains itself the same way a human would explain itself.
So maybe just a quick a technical question. In those interpretable neural network, do you kind of like setting the kernel in a specific way to make sense, or do you like? I guess there's a trick to you need to pay attention to make the neural network more reasonable.
Yeah, so maybe we should talk about this offline, because I can point you to the exact paper.
Yeah,
I think we're out of time. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for a terrific talk, though. Thank you, Cynthia. It's terrific. We are going to do one quick thing because our friends at Stanford are starting up in a few minutes.